Morning and welcome to Garden 365 52. In between my chilies in a pot is a potato, but this is no ordinary potato because it was potato that I used for the potato chip challenge. For the potato chip challenge you only use a chit, you don't use a potato, so this has grown without even having a host potato, just from the chit on the top. And now what I'm going to do is pot it up in its final position and see if I can harvest potatoes off. This potato wasn't even a potato. And the mix for my potato is going to be the best. It's got garden soil, which is pretty essential as far as I'm concerned. It's got some horse muck, and from that I've collected any worms that I found and put them into the wormery. And also it's got compost in there. Now this is bought compost, not garden compost. I didn't have any garden compost ready. I've mixed it all together and now it's going to go into this container, and I've put some 4 stones in the corner where the holes are. It's ready to do. Now what I've done is put the pot inside the container, and what I'm trying to do here is to avoid breaking up the root system of the potato. So what I'll do in a minute is take the potato out of the pot and try and keep as much of the soil together and put it back into the hole that the pot's created, if that makes sense. I can film this because it's not a sort of thing I can film. And that's my entry for this year's potato chip challenge. Will I get potatoes? I'm not sure. Fingers crossed. Okay, I wonder if anybody else has done the potato chip challenge. I would love to see some photographs of yours. Claire's just been out and collected the eggs, and as you can see, when they've been laid, they're really messy. So what we do is we just clean them off. So if we're going to sell these, give them away, or whatever we do with them, they just look a little bit more appetizing with that taken off. And then the reason why I've done this is to show you something. An egg should last for at least a month if kept cool. Okay, and fresh eggs will sink. If you've got an egg that's going off, put it into water, and if it floats, it's off, it's no good, don't use it. It's nature's way of sell by dates. Yeah, so don't get throwing eggs away without testing them that way. All eggs are the same. They will sink if they're fresh and float if they're off. All washed off, and they look so much better now. And you're probably wondering what I'm doing outside on a midweek night. So it's Tuesday, it's about 7 o'clock, and I'm outside, and I love nothing more when the weather's right to come home from work and spend an hour in the garden. So what am I up to? I'll show you. In the greenhouse now, and I should have done this a couple of weeks ago. What I'm going to do now is just tie my tomatoes to the canes. They need that to give them that support as they grow up, because they'll just get too heavy and break. So I'm going to tie them up. Now one of my really early tomatoes has taken a bit of a turn for the worse, and I can only assume it's a bit of a lack of feed or something. So I'm going to give it a bit of a nitrogen hit, or so I'm going to give it a bit of a feed. Okay, and I'll give the others a feed just in case it's affecting them as well. All tomatoes will need a feed at some point. Now just over a week ago on Gardening 365 51, I potted some tomatoes up into this area where I put the stone down. It was flooding, it isn't anymore, and I've really can see a difference in these in just purely a week. And this one over here is quite interesting. How it's really pointing up to the sky, but wow, doesn't that look green? That looks great. I wish my other ones, my early ones, looked like that. I have got some other tomatoes over this side as well, and I have got some sort of other tomatoes down in this area. So I'm just going to literally put a light watering on all of them. And at the very end I've got a kale. Don't ask why that's in here. Now the pots I use are great because you don't have to water the plant direct. You can go to the side of it. And that's great for watering. Whenever I put feed on, I put it in here, so it really goes into the plant. And it takes a couple of minutes or so, and the water then will just drain through down into the roots, which is absolutely perfect. Not cheap though. And when I'm using these pots on the stone, put some water in, and also some ceramic stone as well, so you can really give them a good watering. save the tea out of the tea bags, and I've dried this so I can keep it, and then at some stage I'll put it into the worms. So I just put it into a jar and then I can keep it for a considerable time. I also get given some coffee grounds from a good friend who runs a mobile coffee shop. I do dry them sometimes so I can put them in jars and keep it for a bit longer, but some I'm going to put into this week's compost for the worms, the pre-compost. I'll show you what I mean. Well, this is a compost that I'm going to put into the wormery on the weekend. There's a little bit of everything in there, a little bit of nitrogen from the greens, a little bit of paper, some browns, and I'm going to put the rest of the leftover coffee in there as well. So the worms can look forward to a good feed on the weekend. And they'll turn that into fantastic worm compost. And you're probably wondering how the worms are getting on. Now I started my wormery on the 25th of April and it was on gardening 365.49, and I'll show you exactly 1 month on how well they've settled in. And this is level 4. Not a lot's happening in there at the moment. There are some worms in there, and I'll turn this over now, but the majority of the worms are in the lower layers and not a lot in that first level. But I go to the third level, which has only been going just over a week or two, and you definitely see signs of worms. I'm trying to focus in on that one there, which is a tiger worm. You can see by the colour of it, and it's a little bit wetter than I'd like it, but obviously we've had a lot of damp weather over the last week or two, month or two, year or two. It seems to have rained forever. I get to the third layer and there's even more, and then when I turn it over there's loads if I go down in deeper, and they're turning this into great worm compost. And down on the bottom layer, and this layer has been going exactly 1 month. All hell's breaking out. There's worms just about everywhere, and there's a mixture of 2 types of worm in there. There's red wrigglers, I believe they're called. That one there's a red wriggler, I was guessing, and there's tiger worms. There actually seems to be a lot of tiger worms that have dropped into this level, which is good. So I'll just give this a bit of a turn. Strawberries looking excellent. This is Cambridge strawberries, and they're a mid-season cropping strawberry, and they're a very old-fashioned variety of strawberries that crop really quite well. So pleased with the strawberries so far. I'm going to have to cover these up at some point because the birds will munch. And there's a second variety down here called, I think it's vanilla, and they're also a well cropping strawberry, and they're also mid-season. And I have noticed that weeds are growing just about everywhere, so I'm definitely going to have to do some weeding on the weekend. Not such a task though with raised beds, and I'll show you that on the next video. Now there was frost forecast on, I think it was Saturday night, so I just put some fleece over the potatoes. I'm hoping that is the very last of the frost now, so I'm going to completely uncover them and let them have some daylight, although they do get daylight through the fleece as well. And underneath the fleece the potatoes are looking good and protected. There's no frost on them whatsoever, which is good. So you can see they're getting a little bit smaller as you go down. This is row 4 and still just starting to appear. Row 5 and 6 are not up yet. So it's succession garden in, so hopefully we have potatoes spread over a number of weeks. And to go with those new potatoes, when I dig them, I'll have fresh mint. This is traditional mint, spearmint or whatever, and this is known as apple mint. Both beautiful mints, but they have their own unique flavour. I'm just walking back up to the house now, and there's a couple of things I want to show you before I go in. I'm going to surprise you with my knowledge of flowers. I'm terrible. But this I believe is an azalea, and don't they just look beautiful? And the thing I did want to show you, Claire's brought out the beans now, so there's Belotti beans there, there's French beans there. In fact there's not French, yes there is French beans there, and there's runner beans, and they're just here now by the house so that they are protected a little bit if there was any frost. I don't think there will be, but what it's more about now is adjusting them to the cooler temperature when they do go out in the garden So it's just called hardening off, and that's what we're doing, hardening off the beans. Now unfortunately our daffodils have just about come to the end. But taken over from the daffodils, we've got our bluebells. And there's a number of areas in the garden that we've got these bluebells growing, mostly around the hedges. And they grow wild, and when they're out we don't mow the grass that's around them. Another small area of bluebells, and there's some up there, some over the far side, and some by the hedge. And here's another area of bluebells. Now this area itself has only been established like this for about a couple of years, and already the bluebells are back and they look lovely. Some over there as well. And one of our YouTube members recently said about my accent. I'm from Shropshire. I've always lived in Shropshire, so I suppose it's a Shropshire accent, just in case you was wondering. I'm walking up to the greenhouse and the sheds. More bluebells, and these just spread out every year, and we encourage them because we just love them. Nice, Claire will tell you what that is because I don't know, but it is very nice. And over here, underneath the tree, there's more bluebells. And over here at the back of the shed, we got some forget-me-nots. They don't look like forget-me-nots. The sun's a bit obscured by the tree that's up by the side of us. And over here, more bluebells and some forget-me-nots over there as well. Doesn't it look lovely? And the tree in question is elder, and already it's starting to form elder flowers, and when they're ready I will show you how to make elderflower champagne, which is lovely. I am making my way back to the house bit by bit now, I promise. I'm not going to show you much more. And on the blackthorn tree, all of the blossoms now gone, but that will definitely have sloes on it later in the year, where I'll show you how to make sloe wine or sloe gin, which are both lovely. Just gone past the pond now. We had wild ducks on here before. We go into another area where again there's lots of bluebells. There's wild lupins growing there, and they just grow from seeds off a lupin that we had. We just threw them down all the way down. Very nice, to the solar panels at the bottom. And you can see the two geese at the rear there, just lay down. If I go any closer they'll start hissing at me. Okay, well that's it now. That concludes gardening 36552. I've done a bit midweek stuff because the weather was just so bad on the weekend. Thank you for all the people who've subscribed on YouTube, and again thank you to all the members on Facebook. Believe it or not, now we're just short of 1 year of launching the Facebook site and launching the YouTube site. So keep inviting your friends, that would be great, and join us next time for gardening 36553. Okay, thanks ever so much again for watching, and bye, and see you next time.